The president earlier said that 10 million people have been taken out of poverty since he became the president. But the World Bank also brought a contrary figure that says 7 million people have been plunged into poverty due to the rising inflation. So I want to know, does the giving out of COVID-19 relief fund necessarily mean that people have been pulled out of poverty? What actually does it mean when people are pulled out of poverty?
Well, first, we need to understand the parameters and methodologies that have been used to come up with the kind of number that the president came up with. Same thing for the World Bank. Even as bad as things are, some people are benefiting from the system.
Yeah.
They may be very few, but there are some people who are profiting from the environment, even as bad as it is. Imagine somebody who is a rice producer in a situation where borders were closed, although they have been partially open now. In a situation where rice cannot be imported, there will be scarcity of rice. So anybody who is in that space, even if the quality of the rice is not good, they'll be making money. They take advantage of scarcity to make money. So we could have pockets of people like that that are benefiting from the scarcity that has been created because of the challenges we have, either with importation, with productivity, whatever it is. But what is important in assessing what has been said is to know exactly when the president said that 10.5 million people have been lifted out of poverty. You need to see the assumptions. You need to see the parameters. You need to see the methodology that have been used. If you have all that before us, you'll be able to do a proper appraisal of that statement. But the fact remains that inflation is the worst enemy of the poor. Inflation is perhaps the biggest accelerator of poverty. Because what high inflation does is that it reduces real income, it reduces purchasing power, and therefore it reduces the access to even basic needs of life, especially for the poor. Now we are talking about food inflation above 22% or thereabouts. Food is very basic. So year on year we have 22% inflation. That means that what you can buy last year in terms of food, you want to maintain the same level of what you bought, your income or your budget must increase by 22%. And what has happened to many people is that, first, some people's income have dropped. Some have even lost their jobs. Some people are not being paid salaries. So there is no way you can say that, particularly for the low-income people, that their income has been adjusted well enough to accommodate the increase in price. And the moment you have that challenge, you face a high risk of dropping into poverty. It is worse for those who don't have jobs, and there are many of them. Unemployment is 33%. For those who are not being paid, some may have jobs and they are not being paid. Some have been on suspension. Some are taking half pay, and all of that. So you can see why inflation can be a big problem for poverty. But whether the claim of the World Bank that 7 million people have dropped into poverty, again, you need to see the parameters, you We need to see the assumptions. We need to see the methodology before we can make an informed judgment. But generally, in any situation, some people will drop into poverty, some people will climb out of poverty. But the probability is higher that more people have dropped into poverty than have risen out of poverty.
All right, sir. Are you satisfied with the disbursement of COVID-19 relief funds, especially for MSMEs? Are members of LCCI been able to access this fund to support their
Not many
businesses?
of them, not many of them. Very few. And most of them could not access it. They complain about access to the portal, they fill the application and all of that, all sorts of issues. So not the only very few. I think about 2 or 3 that I know of. It's also possible that some people got and don't want to disclose that they got the money. That also happens sometimes. So but generally, in terms of the people presented that benefits, it's extremely low.
Was there any feedback from the NISRA or CBN as to why they are unable to access these funds?
Well, some of the issues they raised was possibly people didn't fill the applications form properly. There are some documents that were supposed to be provided that possibly those people didn't provide those documentations.
Okay.
And all that. So those were some of the reasons that they gave.
Okay. What are your thoughts regarding the recent harmonization of the foreign exchange and the NAFEX foreign exchange window?
Yeah, I think it's a very good thing because we have said severally that it is better to promote the principle of convergence in the foreign exchange market, because the advantage of that is that first, it will reduce the premium, the arbitrage opportunities that it creates, to reduce speculation, to inspire more confidence, and to boost foreign exchange supply. It will improve certainty and predictability, and generally also improve the inflow of foreign exchange. So, and it will also improve the transparency of the process. So those are some of the advantages we have if you have convergence. So what the CBN has done, I think, is a good thing, but you still have a long way to go because there's still a wide gap between the NAFEX rates and ADC rates, open market rates, black market, or whatever. That gap still exists. So we still need to do a lot more to to bridge those gaps.
And what can be done to bridge the gaps?
So what can be done is to, as much as possible, allow the market forces to determine the price or the exchange rate. Because right now, even the NAFEX rate is not exactly a market rate. It is still being managed, it's still being fixed. Because when you talk of a market rate, it's what we call equilibrium price or equilibrium exchange rate. And that rate is the rate that clears the market. That is what they say in economics. Rate that clears the market. In other words, what people bring to the market is what people buy. So don't go to a market where there is equilibrium price and you want to buy and you not get product to buy. It's not possible. Today, if you ever want to buy a Mercedes-Benz or Rolls-Royce, you have your money, you pick it up. Because there's no hassles. Once you have your money, the thing is available. The market price has been fixed. But today, If you go to NAFEX market and say you want $10,000, they are not likely to get it. Maybe you get 1,000, maybe you get 2,000, maybe you get 3,000 if you are lucky. So if you have that kind of scenario, that is not a market rate. In a market rate, supply will equal demand.
So it means the rate is still being influenced.
Yes, that is what it suggests. Yeah.
There was a time in 2018, the government entered into a swap deal, Naira Yuan swap deal with the Chinese government to enable trade between Nigeria and Chinese partners. Did LCCI members in any way benefit from this swap deal? Because I understand from a report of the CBN that a total of 1.75 billion yuan has been exchanged so far since the inception of the program.
Well, I'm not aware of any of our members that have benefited. That is not to say that people have not benefited. And what I do also know is that I think the total swap deal was about 3.5.
2.5 billion yuan.
It was 2.5.
Yes, 2.5.
Total trade between us and China will be well over maybe 30 billion or so when you talk of trade between us and China. So when you compare the swap even to the total trade, this is not significant. It's not significant. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but it's not material. And if you talk to an average Chinese, you want to buy anything, you ask to go and pay dollar. You can't impose yuan on him or her. And this is business. Willing buyer, willing seller. You can't go and tell him that CBN has said there's a swap. You should come and take yuan. No. 90% of them will tell you, this is my account, pay your dollar. And come and pick the good. That is the way it is. And if anybody also wants to buy something from Nigeria, because the swap is supposed to be a two-way thing. If somebody wants to buy something from Nigeria, as an exporter, will you allow the person to pay you Naira?
Dollars.
Because
it's more valuable.
So I don't see any exporter here that is okay. You are exporting cocoa or you are exporting cashew nuts, for example, to either Vietnam or even to China. Let's stay with China. And the Chinese person is telling you that he give you dollar. Give you Naira. You won't take it. He says you bring a dollar or at what? Go and bring the Chinese yuan. You won't take Naira. And the whole idea of the swap is that people can pay you can receive Naira, and those people can also be paid in their own currency. I hope you understand.
Yes, I understand.
But it's not practical. It's not working.
Okay. Recently, the Gambian government, I think this week, they came to Nigeria to strike a deal with the CBN that they want Nigeria to be printing their currency. Is there any economic value that Nigeria can derive from this kind of deal?
Of course, it's good. That is exports. We need exports. That is export of services. Okay. So it's a fantastic idea. People are demanding for our services. That is good. So it's a great thing. It will bring a lot of value. And the more of those services we can render to other countries, the better. Especially now that we are talking about African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So it's good for the economy.
Then what are your thoughts regarding the move of the government to regulate social media, actually to license them in order to monitor their activities?
If you are going outside the economy, so
it's part of the economy. Social media drives business.
The thing is more political than an economy. Well, the thing is that I think there should not be any system where there will not be any form of control at all. I can't think of any system that doesn't have any control. But what you can be discussing or debating is the nature and the character of the control and who exercises the control. But you cannot have a platform as powerful as the social media platform is, where anybody can just post anything and there will be no control at all. Even terrorists are posting on social media. Boko Haram is posting on social media. I think there has to be some measure of control. I think there has to be. That is why, I mean, you work for a media house, even though it's online, even as a registered online media house. A reporter cannot just bring any reports and it will be published. The editor will look at it, a lot of people will look at it and say, okay, this story is good to go. The same thing with radio. You can't just go on radio and be saying anything. If you are saying too much, the producer or somebody will cut you off. The same thing with TV. The same thing with newspapers. All of them have frameworks for control. Some of them could even be self-regulation. You understand? So that is what it is. But to have a platform where there will be no control at all, I think is, I don't think it's a good thing. But you can have a conversation around the nature of the controls, who will do the control, or something like that. It could be a body of operators in the sector. The social media space, they can have an association and put a code of conduct in place as to what should be posted, what should not be posted. So that is my view.